Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this spooktacular Spinsterella story. Pick up your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Why is it that Comicsgate creators can't get their comics to readers in a reasonable time? That's the critical question I have to ask after hearing many horror stories regarding Comicsgate creators not getting their comics to readers in a reasonable time, and many people having to wait anywhere from 2 to 3 years before they even get any book or any news regarding their books. I mean, when I look at this whole situation, it really has me scratching my head because as someone who's been in digital publishing for over 15 years, I know it's not that hard to be able to get these books out to readers and get them out to readers in a reasonable time. Now, when it comes down to many of these Comicsgate creators back in the 2018 or the era of the Comicsgate era, many of these guys basically came out here saying that they could go out here and create a better comic book industry as related to the products that they produced because they were upset about many of the woke comics, as they call them, from the people who produce the all-new, all-different Marvel and many of the people working at companies like DC Comics or at subsidiaries like Vertigo. Now, many of these comic creators basically were out here talking about how they were going to revolutionize the comic book industry with many of their independent comics that were going to be made through crowdfunding. However, we're seeing that their talking points are basically being refuted because of the results that they don't produce. Now, many of these Comicsgate creators were out here talking about how they were going to make changes to the comic book industry. However, over the last 8 to 9 years, we basically see that the comic book industry has not gone through any positive changes. No, even though these guys have gone on to have many six-figure campaigns, we don't see how they're having a serious impact on the comic book industry because over the course of the last 8 to 9 years, instead of us seeing sales go up in the comic book business, no, we've seen even more comic book stores close. And right now we are at a point where we only have 300 comic book stores in the United States, and many of the Comicsgate producers are not consistently producing comics. No, many of them have left many of their backers basically hanging for years as they've waited for comics to come to them, and as they've waited for these new comics to come, many are becoming frustrated because they're seeing that Comicsgate basically went out here and wrote a check with their mouth that their ass isn't able to cash, and that's basically soured a lot of people on looking to support independent crowdfunded comics. Now, as somebody who runs a publishing imprint out of his bedroom, I know it's not that hard to go out here and be able to produce a book in a reasonable time because I do it basically, have been doing it for the last 15 years here with the SJS Direct imprint that I established in 2009. And as I've been working on this SJS Direct imprint, I've published over 80 books in fiction and nonfiction. And every year I consistently produce books in series like the ISIS series, the Esteem series, and the John Haynes series, and books like those in the Spinsterella series. And I know it's not that hard to be able to write a book out here and do it consistently and regularly. And I also know that it's not hard to go out here and publish books with all the digital technology in place today that we didn't have 25 years ago when I first looked to aspire to be a writer. I mean, I know that it's not that hard because I do this every year. I mean, this year I did 3 books on the SJS Direct imprint. I did the John Haynes A Thorn in My Side, which came out in March. I did esteemed season of The Witch Girl, which came out in April, and I did this over 640-page book, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer, which also featured images inside of the book. I'll try to show you some of the images that are inside. This book, basically, I was not only working on prose, but I also was putting images inside of the book, working with Photoshop and other software to, again, put together a 600-page book. But you have many of those in Comicsgate saying, oh, we just still are struggling as related to getting product out on a reasonable time. And I know it's possible to go out here and be able to do that when you know how to work your logistics. Now, as someone who has, again, been publishing books for over 15 years, I know that you have to work out your logistics as related to getting books out at near a deadline in order to take advantage of periods where people buy books like those in the summer reading season. Now, the summer reading season is a major period where many publishers get their new readers, and that's what I was doing again last year, working on to get to March where the summer reading season starts, and I launched books like John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side to start the summer reading season. Then I did an April esteemed season of The Witch Girl, and I did Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Again, had all these books in process over the course of last year, like I do every year. So I know that, yeah, you can get these books out in a reasonable time if you have a schedule. And the whole thing is, again, I'm doing this straight out of a bedroom. This is the only place where I work, and I was able to do that for many of my books for many years, and I was even able to do it for my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, that basically came out in 2022. Now, back in 2022, I was able to go out here and do a crowdfunding campaign for my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, after getting a donation from a viewer who wanted to see me do my first comic. And after I got that money, I was able to work with an artist, and I was able to get this book, all the art paid for. And after I got the art and the lettering paid for, I then started to launch the campaign and did the promotion for the campaign. And after I did that, I was able to go out here and put it on crowdfunding, got this book funded in less than 48 hours. And after I got it funded in less than 48 hours, I was able to, again, be able to, after the campaign ended and I got and the Kickstarter fees were taken out, I immediately had this book sent to Lulu, not any other comic book printer out here, but Lulu, because I wanted to get a higher quality print as related to the books. And I got these books in the hands of readers before the deadline. John Haynes at Death's Door, the digital was in people's hands in less than a week, and many of the paper copies were basically shipped by the end of the summer. And right now, only one person doesn't have their book because they didn't give me their address. But I have their book. I have everything that they gave me as related to their order. I'm just ready to ship it right now. And again, this book basically was in the hands of readers before the deadline. And this is a guy coming out of his bedroom. And I'm wondering, why don't these Comicsgate guys have their books out on time? That's the critical question I'm asking right now. Why is it that Comicsgate creators who say that they are going to, again, revolutionize the comic book industry, make all of these changes, why is it taking them anywhere from 3 to 5 years, or even some of them don't even have anything delivered? Why is it taking so long when, for someone like me, again, a guy out of his bedroom, can get a book out in less than 90 days? I got this out in less than 90 days, and I also was, again, publishing books like these on the SJS Direct imprint in the same time. Basically, I'm wondering what's going on here with many of these Comicsgate creators. Why can't they get their books out in a reasonable time? Why is it taking so long? I know that there are sometimes some issues as related to things that are out of people's control. Sometimes you wind up in a situation where you have an artist basically, again, walk out on you, or they don't finish the project on time. Sometimes you have issues with colorists, again, not being able to get stuff out on time. and sometimes a letterer isn't available. I understand that those things can happen, but that's all part of your job as a publisher to work out your logistics. It's all part of your job to work out your logistics before you even launch the campaign. You're supposed to work all of that out, and your job is to provide product to the customer in a reasonable time because you want the customer to have a good experience. However, it doesn't seem like there are those in Comicsgate who want readers to have a good experience, and that really shows how hypocritical they are, because they came out here saying that they were going to provide a superior product to Marvel Comics and DC Comics, and sadly we see that they just cannot go out here and deliver on that promise, because a lot of the Comicsgate books, basically, they are of mediocre quality, and if they come out, and many of these people basically talk about, oh, I've got another project. Well, the whole goal of being a publisher is you don't talk about how you have another project or launch a campaign until you finish the last one. Because again, in this business, when it comes down to things, you're only as good as your last project. And if you keep going out here and making all sorts of campaigns and don't deliver on them, that's sending out a message to people that you don't have anything genuine as related to, again, providing a good customer experience, and you're not really genuine about going out here and producing quality comics. No, you're not really genuine about producing quality comics. No, it's all about basically these guys going out here and looking to tell people what they want to hear in order to get this six figures as related to these campaigns, but then they don't want to pay back the customer by giving them the product that they promised to provide them. Now, when it comes down to these, again, Comicsgate guys, I believe a lot of them, again, they know how to talk the talk, but they don't know how to walk the walk as related to fulfillment. They don't really know how much things cost, because what they're looking to do is go out here and possibly just look to get the AdSense dollars as related to clicks and views. Mainly, that's what the main focus of Comicsgate has been all about, getting those clicks and views as related to complaining about the sad state of affairs of the comic book industry, but not really focusing on the overall business of publishing comics and providing comics to the reader. And that's where people are starting to sour on Comicsgate and all of the people who are a part of it. They're souring on it because it's basically them talking a good game, but never really delivering on the goods. Because in the world of publishing, again, you're only as good as your last product. You're only as good as the last book that you published. And these guys, in some cases, haven't published anything in years, and they still sit there making excuses as related to why they can't get books out on time. Now, some of these excuses I have heard are mind-boggling as related to somebody, again, having 3 to 5 years, basically haven't produced anything. I mean, I heard one Comicsgate creator say, oh, I was feeling burnt out. Well, that's not the case as related to the customer. You can't just leave customers hanging by saying you're in your feelings. No, there are days that when I deal with anxiety and extreme amounts of stress, but I managed to get 3 to 4 books out every year. And in 2022, I was able to get this comic out, and I'm still working on comics right now as related to scripts. I'm always working, and again, the stress is not an excuse for me, because I have to, again, do this to make a living, and I have to provide customers with a good experience. For me, it's about making sure that the customer gets a good experience and gets product out on time. And I can't sit there and, again, look to make an excuse and leave the customer hanging once I've got their money. Now, I also heard a horror story about another Comicsgate creator who went out here and, after he got his crowdfunding money for the project, basically misappropriated the funds by looking to live off those funds. Now, when it comes down to this whole business of independent publishing, you cannot go out here and make a living on this by itself. No, you basically need to have other revenue streams. And this creator, he was the creator of some sort of book. I think it was called Dragon Gate or something like that. It's Dragon something. But the whole thing is, He was looking to live off the crowd funds, not understanding that those funds are appropriated and written on Kickstarter as related to the contract you basically sign with the customer. Because what you're doing when you write on Kickstarter saying that what you're going to use the costs for, that's what those funds are supposed to be used for. But this guy said he wanted to use it for his living expenses. He wanted to not have a job, but wanted to just go out here and make comics. But that's not how it works as related to publishing. No, in publishing of independent projects, you basically have to have a day job to basically take care of your personal needs, and the money that you get for the crowdfunding project has to be appropriated for that project, and mostly as related to it. And then you have to go out here and again print and ship those books. That's what the crowdfunding usually is for, or if you, in some cases, some people say that they use it for the art, but it's mostly supposed to be for the expenses as related to the project, and you have to write all those expenses down to let the customer know, again, in advance what things are going to cost. That's your job as a publisher. That's your job as a project manager. It's not supposed to be for your living expenses. No, nobody has ever really lived off publishing whatsoever in this world, but people got this idea because they saw guys like Ethan Van Sciver out here, again, living very large off his Cyberfrog campaign, and they thought, oh, I can go out here and make millions of dollars the way Ethan Van Sciver made, and I can live off this money. But that's never been the case at all. No, when it comes down to publishing, again, publishing is a business where it usually runs on a razor-thin profit margin and usually a lot of times runs on a loss. So when it comes to a publisher, again, when you get the money from crowdfunding, it's not to pay for your living expenses. No, it's supposed to pay for the project. And that's what I did with the John Haynes at Death Store comic. I went out here, once I got the funds, I went out here, I bought the shipping supplies, I went out here, I bought the books, and I bought the prints that I provided as a bonus. Again, bought all of those items and bought the bags and the backing boards so that people could, again, get their book in good condition, and made sure that all of those books were shipped, and I still have all the receipts for all that. Again, my job as a publisher is to get the book, is to use the crowdfunding money to pay for the printing and shipping of the book, and whatever costs that come before, like the art and stuff, that's on me, and that's for me to go out here and spend on. But my job is not to take your money that you paid for this product for and give you nothing at all. No, my job is to give you a book and make sure that that book is, the expenses for it are paid for. That's what my job is as a project manager for a crowdfunding project. But it seems like many Comicsgate producers don't understand this at all. No, they don't understand. Your job is to, again, once you get this money, pay for that printing, pay for that shipping, and again, get those books in the hands of readers. That's what you're supposed to do with those funds. Otherwise, what you're participating in is embezzlement, and embezzlement is a crime because, again, you're taking funds that were allocated for a case as related to a contract and misappropriating them, and that's not what you're supposed to do. Again, when you get money, you're supposed to use it for what it's supposed to be for, and that's what this guy didn't understand, and many Comicsgate guys, again, they don't really understand the business of publishing, but they'll sit there and, again, talk about, oh, how woke these comics are, get you in your emotions, and again, their goal is to just go out here and grift on these comics projects and grift on these live streams, complaining about the comic book business and how bad it is due to so-called woke comics, and sell you a pipe dream about how their comics are going to change the comic book industry. However, when we take an objective look at the comic book industry and the direction it's currently in, we see that the industry really isn't changing for the better, like many people in 2016 to 2020 to right now are basically making the promise of. No, we're seeing that the comic book industry has gotten progressively worse, with many of these comics basically going from selling, again, anywhere from 20,000 copies, which is what comics used to, like Batman and Spider-Man used to do, which these were top books at one time. That, again, when I was in high school, these books were basically selling anywhere from 750,000 to 1 million copies a month. Now they're barely doing anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 copies a month. And many of the comic book stores that were struggling right now have closed, and now we are at a point where we only have 300 comic book stores in the country, showing us how Comicsgate really hasn't had much of an impact on the business at all. No, Comicsgate basically is out here, again, it talks a good game, complains about the sad state of affairs of the comic book industry, but sadly, because many of these people are not publishing professionals, they really don't see how they basically have done more damage to the industry altogether with their so-called campaigns. They have done way more damage to the industry because, again, not only do they complain about the comic book business, but they also don't offer a solution, and even worse, they wind up stiffing their customers, who in some cases spend anywhere from $15 to $50 to $100 on their books, and they don't provide those people with anything of quality whatsoever. In many cases, a lot of the books are mid, like the Cyberfrog Blood Honey book was mid, or in some cases, a lot of these books they show how inexperienced these writers and artists are. Again, many of these guys, ironically, who complained about the so-called woke comics, basically show how inexperienced they are as related to the craft of publishing comics, and in both cases, the customer winds up having a poor experience that alienates them from independent comics and keeps people from supporting great independent comic creators out here as related to the content we produce. That's what's really sad about this whole situation. Again, Comicsgate back in 2018, a lot of these guys run out here with their mouths writing checks, and now we see that their ass can't really cash those checks. They basically have alienated a lot of customers, and sadly a lot of them sitting there, they want to again continue to complain about the comic book industry. And the reason why they want to complain, because that's all part of their grift. Their whole grift is not about providing comics to customers. No, it's all about going out here and getting clicks and views on social media and racking up the AdSense dollars or the super chat money in live streams. This is where most of these guys like an Ethan Van Sciver make most of their money. They make most of their money basically on these live streams, in addition to the crowdfunding projects that they don't really deliver on. I mean, I find it sad, again, that they can't go out here and deliver on their books on time because, again, they really show how disingenuous they are as related to things. Again, Comicsgate was supposed to be about, oh, we're going to go out here and revolutionize the comic book industry by providing people with quality books, and we really don't see that at all. No, many of the Comicsgate producers really haven't produced these books on time. And one thing that I found to be interesting was there was a period where a guy, Chuck Dixon, again, he was out here talking about, how Kickstarter makes it hard for you to put out your address. Well, I'm a super backer on Kickstarter. I've supported over 25, 30 campaigns over the last 5 to 10 years, and I know it's very easy to put an address in because I get the email, and after I get the email, I put my address in the system, and they even have pre-saved addresses. But Comicsgate guys like Chuck Dixon will say, oh, it's so hard to get an address through Kickstarter. Well, I've gotten multiple books from multiple creators over the last decade or so, and I've had next to no problems out of 1 or 2 people who never delivered on the goods. And I looked at that and I saw how this guy basically, what he wanted to do was create social media drama, and that's what Comicsgate really is all about. Creating a lot of social media drama, making a lot of noise, making a lot of flash, but never really presenting anything of substance or delivering any sort of goods whatsoever, never delivering on a tangible product like I have here with John Haynes at Death's Door. Again, never delivering on a tangible product, and it really is sad. Again, Comicsgate said that they could go out here and again build a better comic book business, but they can't even work out, again, a basic independent publishing business. I mean, it's really sad that these guys, with having hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars more than I do, and again, I publish many of my books on a shoestring based on the donations I get as related to people requesting videos and live stream super chats here and there. I mean, I don't really make that much money, but I can go out here and again produce books every year consistently for over a decade and a half. And Comicsgate, basically these guys, a lot of these guys, this is their first, maybe their second comic, and they can't get a book out on time. 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, it's not that hard to do this. All you need really to do a comic is Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Photoshop as related to things. I mean, I put together John Haynes at Death's Door with Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Photoshop. Again, not that hard, but these guys, again, after they go out here and make these campaigns, can't get nothing out on time, saying, oh, it take 3 to 5 years and you still ain't got nothing. No, it don't take that long. And a lot of these guys want to say, oh, well, the artist was feeling tired. Well, I put in a PayPal dispute and they'll start moving at that point because, again, the product was not delivered. And again, you can get a refund for your money. Again, they're all things all there for recourse as related to things. But when I look at this whole Comicsgate situation, again, they were supposed to save comics, but we see that they basically don't know how to do anything at all. And we see that they sit there and again, they talk about, oh, these comics are woke, these comics are bad, but they don't really understand how the business works. And again, it's sad that a guy can do this in his bedroom, can get a book out before a deadline, and many of these guys who are comic pros and comic insiders can't get a book out on time. That's what really has me really shaking my head. If a guy like me can go out here and get a book out on time out of a bedroom, why can't these guys in Comicsgate get these books out on time? I mean, why can't these guys get books out on time and understand, you know, this is about your reputation. This is about all the stuff you talked. You said you could get these books out on time, but they're still not out, and again, years later, and there's no excuse for that. No, your book was supposed to be on a road to getting ready even before you did the Kickstarter. That's something I understand. You know, you have to have your book ready, and you have to start with your script. Then you go to your artist, and then you're supposed to be having art in progress. And I understand, yeah, sometimes you can't, sometimes there are things that happen, but stuff is supposed to be in progress, and things are supposed to be on their way, if not finished. And one of the things I like to do is have everything finished, so the customer, all they have to do is put in their pre-order like they'd have to do for books like this one, A Steam Season of the Witch Girl. And then after the campaign, what I like to do is also make sure that there's a way for customers to be able to get their books. That's why I have John Haynes at Death's Door on Lulu right now, because I want the customers to know, yeah, if you missed the campaign, you can still pick this book up. And again, this is not that hard. The tools are there. But with Comicsgate, they sit there on these 3-4 hour live streams complaining, or they making multiple videos complaining about the comic book industry, but not providing the results or the solutions that they wound up promising people. And that's the thing that really has me, again, really disappointed, because, again, these Comicsgate guys, they talked a good game, but what's really sad is that they cannot even go out here and get their books out on time. And I see many brothers and sisters and creators out here get their work out again every year. I mean, there are creators out here getting their work out every year, really quality good books that are out here every year. And these Comicsgate guys, again, for all of their bluster, couldn't get a single book out on time. And it just really shows how, again, this wasn't about business. It was all about a grift, all about a con. And now that people are onto the con, the jig is up, because it just doesn't take that long to get a book out here. Because again, if a guy like me can go out here and publish a 600-page book and 2 other books that are over 100 pages in a year, then Comicsgate has no excuse for not being able to get a 32-page comic out here. They have no excuse whatsoever. The tools are there, but these guys are too busy looking to beef and argue and try to create a fiefdom as related to comics for themselves, rather than look to create a legitimate business. And that's why Comicsgate basically has gone nowhere in the last decade. It's been a whole movement. Now, if you want to pick up my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, this comic is available on Lulu.com right now in paperback, and you can pick up a paper copy for the same price as it was on the 2022 Kickstarter. And this book will basically be shipped directly to you in less than a week or so. I think in most cases you'll be able to get this book, and you'll be able to see how I go out here and make comics. And if you want to check out my latest book, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer, which is over 600 pages and features art in the interior as related to things, because this was supposed to be a light novel. This was supposed to be a light novel, and it was supposed to have images like the light novels. This is the latest book in the SJS Direct 2025 catalog, and it's available on Amazon.com. And you can pick up this over 600-page book on Amazon.com, along with the other SJS Direct 2025 books, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl, and John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side. And you can find all three of these books on Amazon.com and other online booksellers like Draft Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to help me to be able to continue making more SJS Direct imprint books and be able to pay artists to be able to do the covers for these books and also to do the interior art and be able to help me work towards possibly making my next comic, I have a couple of scripts for ISIS graphic novels I want to do. You can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available on Lulu, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at Lulu.com today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.